Hey y'all, I'm Chris Fox, a brand strategist and marketing coach, and this is the Small Business Survival Guide. I'm bringing the questions and concerns we have about doing business in the age of the coronavirus to experts in their field who can help us look ahead and give practical steps to press on. Today, I'm joined by Corbin Jackson. Corbin is a commercial insurance broker and has been in the sales industry for 8 years, serving businesses throughout the Oklahoma community. He holds a bachelor's degree in risk management and insurance from the University of Central Oklahoma and is part of various industry associations locally. Fun fact, Corbin also enjoys his side hustle as co-owner of a wedding DJ company. Welcome, Corbin. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So let's dive in. What do sales pipelines look like today in this stay-at-home world?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think sales pipelines have changed, but I think they're still alive. I just think it looks a little bit different right now. I think oftentimes right now salespeople can get discouraged when they're not seeing the consistent sales or new revenue coming in like they're used to. But I think it's important to look at sales pipelines overall as different stages as it correlates with your sales cycle for whatever product or service that you're selling. And so it just may be during this time that a prospect or a lead stays at a certain stage within your pipeline a little bit longer than normal. So I think it's important not to get discouraged, but really focus in on where they're at and their status within the pipeline that you have.
Yeah, that's excellent and really encouraging to hear you say, don't look at that lead or prospect as lost, maybe just look at them as stationary in that particular part of the cycle right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
how do you think that lead gen in that way has changed in this time of quarantine or working from home? How have you seen prospects entering the cycle? How's that different?
Yeah, it can. I think sales oftentimes is difficult when starting new relationships in general, right? But now we're thrown into this pandemic, and it's like everything's uncertain, and a lot of people haven't been through this, right? Because it's very new. You know, a lot of people have this conservative or defensive mindset right now as far as the buyer goes, because there is a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. And a big part of the sales process is trust and building that trust with your buyer. And so I think it's important to look at different ways how we as salespeople can adapt to that and find ways to build trust quickly with that consumer, right? So I think a couple of practical ways of doing that, Chris, is really focusing in on your current clients and asking how can we solve some problems that they're going through right now with the current product or service that I sell. And once you solve a problem for them, if it's appropriate, asking for a referral into another organization. And when you do that, it helps transfer that trust that's already built between those two parties, and it instantly gives you more credibility in that situation. Another way to practically do that is possibly contacting different centers of influence that you might be connected with that know who your buyer is and can make that introduction and form that trust quickly.
So something I'm hearing you saying is it's a lot of active prospecting that needs to be happening right now, not any at all, just sitting back and waiting for something to change or people to come to you. This is really active work to go out and leverage current relationships, build trust, solve problems, and ultimately find new prospects, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very active, just like you may have been before this pandemic or this crisis, but it may be a different type of activity because obviously we want to be professional and sensitive to what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about any innovations that you've made to deal with these restrictions, having to work, from your home, not being able to go and maybe have that coffee meeting? How has that changed in your own business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love to be innovative. I love to think outside the box and bring new ideas to the table, especially in the insurance industry. I feel like there's a huge opportunity to be innovative. but also I often think of this quote from Mark Twain, where he says, whenever you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And so the reason I mention that quote is it kind of brings to mind of, okay, well, what are a lot of other people doing? And maybe how can I do something different to break through the noise as a salesperson? And so, for example, a couple of things I'm seeing right now, a lot of people are doing is they're emailing a lot of their prospects, different like resources and information, which is great, but a lot of it still may pertain to the coronavirus or COVID or something like that. And even, me as a salesperson, I'm getting 10 to 15 emails a day on this kind of stuff. And then I'm watching the news on top of that. So it's just really inundating myself and my mind of all this stuff. So it's, how can we break through the noise? And some ways that I'm finding practically to do that is just to be old school and pick up the phone. And, I'm finding a lot of people are at home and they're willing to listen, and they're also willing to talk about what's going on and the problems they're experiencing as far as operational changes within their business. And so for me, it's an opportunity just to, critically and active listen to what their problems are. And if I find something in there to where I can help solve a problem for them, I'll follow that up with an email, because then it's going to go more to the top of their priority list and not get lost in the inbox, right?
I mean, that's awesome. You're not even joking. That's old school customer service where you're saying, I want to truly know what's up, how are you? And that takes active listening. And then if I can uncover a problem there, I can offer a solution in a genuine way that helps you. That's often what I tell a lot of my clients and my coaching students in marketing is, if you can offer value and you can solve people's problems, you are just as relevant today as you ever were and will be, forever, because you're really keyed in on that problem and that struggle that someone has and offering a solution as way of value. That puts you, like you said, right up at the top of someone's mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you really boil it down to it, it's we as salespeople, we're problem solvers, right? We're trying to figure out ways to solve people's problems and make their lives easier.
Yeah, that's totally true. Well, so what can people who are in sales careers right now do to prepare for what's ahead? What changes do you see, or what are even you making preparations for the world as it's coming?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because when we prepare for what's ahead, there's a lot of uncertainty in that, right? We're not for sure what's ahead, but I think what we can focus in on as salespeople is what we can control, right? And so I think a few of those things would be just to maintain activity, similar to what we've talked about earlier in the interview. Establishing and finding different ways to connect to our customers that really makes sense during this time that we're living in right now. And then also review your current value proposition and strategy to make sure it aligns to what's going on in the world right now.
That's so good. I mean, that to me would say we just came out of maybe 10 or 15 years of this time of abundance where, it was easy to sell almost anything. And we're moving into this time of scarcity. And so looking at your value proposition is really going to make you ready to sell in what time is ahead, because people are going to view different things and have different values. There's going to be a different value on their cash for sure, going to be a different value on solving their problems, and especially a different value on how they're going to spend their time. So would you say that your value proposition it should be really structured more for this time of scarcity?
I think so. I think right now, as salespeople, we love to talk often, but I think now is the perfect time to really listen and understand what people are going through, and then how we can adapt and adjust our own value proposition and the services that we provide to our clients.
Man, that's so good. Listen instead of talking. I like that. Well, okay, if we're looking 5 years ahead, what do you think are our biggest takeaways from this pandemic?
5 years ahead. I feel like that's a long time away, but
Week is a long time, right? Now,
I think 5 years ahead from a sales perspective, some takeaways from this pandemic is going to be, how do we as salespeople insulate our pipeline moving forward? So I often think of, we have financial planners that may tell us, Corbin, you really need to have like 6 months or 12 months emergency savings in the bank account, right? So it's how do we take that same concept and flip it to, well, how do we have 6 months to 12 months in our pipeline to
Wow.
insulate ourselves as salespeople during this time?
Yeah, that is almost saying I'm going to really fill the pipeline at all stages. And I want people that I'm just meeting, just becoming aware of what I'm offering. And those relationships are going to be long plays. So you're kind of saying this pandemic's going to teach us to do that better, that had we all been better at that before, maybe some of us wouldn't have lost clients right out of the middle or end of our sales pipelines.
Yeah, I think so, Chris. I think, oftentimes we get comfortable and enjoy the good times, and may not think this could ever occur, but obviously we're right in the middle of it right now. So I think we'll just have that in the back of our mind moving forward and be able to hopefully be better prepared if something like this happens again.
What do you think the difference between a company, let's say company A has a really long pipeline, their sales cycle is going to be 12 months, but we've got company B who maybe is looking at a matter of weeks between this awareness and purchase. How are those different? Do you think that right now they're the same? Both businesses, both leaders need to be listening and solving problems and adding value and trusting, or is there something more nuanced there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for the organizations that have a very short sales cycle, maybe it's like a 30-minute phone call, right? You're trying to like call somebody and then close it before the end of the call.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot more activity there that has to take place, but I do think active listening is still a big part of that. Just understanding just putting yourself in that person's shoes of what they're going through, because they may be just trying to keep their employees and pay them, right? It's just having to understand better of where the end person is at.
That's good. Just a real day-to-day awareness of what all of us as humans are going through, the feelings that we are carrying into the workplace every day.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
that more insulated pipeline that's much longer play, you might touch base with clients and build a relationship over that 12 months, but the call today is going to be very different from the call 3 months from now when you're just checking in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me personally, right, my sales cycle is typically 6 months to 3 years, let's say, right? And so oftentimes it is a longer play. So right now it's very much active listening and trying to bring resources to the table, because even if I can't bring a solution to the table right now that solves their need during this time, we're still building that relationship over a phone call so that in the future they know who I am a little bit more and I know who they are, right? And so I think that helps out quite a bit.
That's awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for your time and your insight. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everything you're doing for the community.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Thank you all for listening to the Small Business Survival Guide. We're going to leave Corbin's information so you can follow him on social and shoot any questions you might have in the sales world to him, or just strike up a relationship and join his 3-year sales cycle, right? We really appreciate you listening and subscribing. Leave questions you have for experts in the comments, and we will find experts to answer them. I'm Chris Fox, and thanks for listening to another episode of the Small Business Survival Guide.